All right, here's a problem that says give the domain of each function. So they don't want you they don't want you to graph this. They want you just to give the domain and write it in set and interval notation, both. So the first thing to realize is that when they ask for the domain, there's really two things you have to look for. The denominator can't equal 0. That's if the denominator equals 0, that is a no-no. It's not part of the domain. And you can't take the square root of a negative. So those are the two things we're looking for, and we actually have both situations here. So there we have a denominator, so we know that the square root of 3x minus 4 cannot equal 0. And we also have a square root, so we know that 3x minus 4 has to be greater than 0, because that's inside the square root and that can't be negative, that expression. Well, we can combine these together because really this only happens, this thing here only happens if what's inside there equals 0. So what we can say, previously what we would have said is that 3x minus 4 would have to be greater than or equal to 0, because it can equal 0, square root of a 0 is a 0. But if it did, we'd have a problem because we'd be dividing by 0. So we can, again, just write this one thing, and that one thing is what we're really looking for. That 3x minus 4 has to be greater than 0. So let's just solve that inequality. 3x is greater than 4, and x is greater than 4/3. And you can check it just to make sure. Plug in 4/3 in here, 4/3 here, and 4/3 here. It doesn't really matter what's on top, because on the bottom, those 3's are going to cancel. You're going to get 4 minus 4, and the square root of 4 minus 4 is 0, and you can't divide by 0. Okay. And then if you plug in something smaller than 4/3, like for instance 1, if you put a 1 in there, then you'll have 3 times 1, which is 3, minus 4 is -1. You can't take the square root of a negative. Okay. So if you're not 100% sure you did that right, you can kind of just check it mentally by doing that. So there's my answer, but now let's do it in set and interval notation. So set notation would be x, the domain is all x, this is set notation, such that x is greater than 4/3. It's very easy for that particular example. The other one, interval notation, we would write x has to be greater than 4/3, so then we would write 4/3, notice that it's an open bracket, not a closed bracket, comma, infinity, which means everything between 4/3 and infinity, not including 4/3. So those are the two answers, the two ways you'd write it, and that's your answer.